Now tell me, is it possible to work with computer? No, because I want the operating system. How I'm going to interact with the operating system through the commands as well as program instruction. This operating system allows only one user to share the system resource including CPU. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on fundamentals of computers, and the today's topic is operating system. I am Revati from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the topic which I have covered in my last session of this unit. So dear student, I have covered computer memory, that is nothing but what is computer memory, and the two type of memory, that is primary memory as well as secondary memory. Along with that, I have discussed the two types of primary memory, that is ROM and RAM. Along with that, I have discussed what is magnetic tape, what is magnetic disk, optical disk, etc. So these are the topic I have discussed in my last session. But in my today's session, I'm going to deal with operating system. In that, I'm going to deal with functions of operating system. Along with that, I'm going to deal with the types of operating system. So dear student, please make a note here that from the examination point of view, all these topics are very important. You can able to expect 1 mark question, 5 mark question as well as 10 mark question. Now at the beginning, I'm going to have operating system. So what is operating system? So dear student, think that I'm going to buy new laptop. Now think that I brought new laptop, but I did not install any operating system. Now tell me, is it possible to interact with the computer system without operating system? That means I'm the user. I have the computer system, but I did not install any operating system. Now tell me, I'm the user and I want to interact with the computer system, but I did not install any operating system. Now tell me, is it possible to work with computer? No, because I want the operating system. First, I want to install the operating system. Then only I can able to interact with the computer system. So now tell me, what is operating system here? There is nothing but the mediator or interface between the computer user as well as computer. Now, an operating system is a set of program. It is nothing but the group of program or set of instruction which is going to act like a mediator or interface between the user. So what is user? That is nothing but the computer user. That means one who is going to use the computer and the computer. The main system software is the operating system. If I consider system software, the example for system software is operating system, which starts up the computer and controls its operation. Now, the operating system is responsible for start the computer as well as control all its operation. And the operating system is also responsible for managing resource. So what is this resource? That is nothing but memory, process, CPU. These are the example for resource. So here operating system is also responsible for managing memory, allocating resources to the processor or process, and it's also responsible for managing the CPU. And it's also responsible for resolving all the conflicts and try to optimize the performance of the system. So what are the job of operating system? That is resource management, resolve the conflict, as well as optimize or increase the performance of the system. Now the user communicates with the computer through the operating system. Suppose, think that I'm the user. Now, I want to communicate with the operating system. How can I communicate with the operating system? What is the media? That is nothing but the operating system. And how I'm going to interact with the operating system? Through the commands as well as program instruction. So here operating system plays an important role in loading programs. Dear student, we know that most of the programs as well as data are stored in the secondary storage device. That is nothing but the disk. Now, I want to load the program as well as data which is stored in the secondary storage device to main memory. Now, tell me who is responsible for loading the program? That is none other than operating system. At the same time, operating system is also responsible for displaying message, translating the program, as well as outputting, that is outputting the result. So these are the roles of operating system. Moving further, I'm going to have the functions of operating system. That means what are the different kinds of functions are carried out by the operating system. That is memory management, process management, device management, along with file management, protection of data, as well as security, along with that user interface or command line interpreter. Now, dear student, at the beginning, I'm going to have the memory management. So this is the primary activity of an operating system. So operating system is responsible for managing memory. So what is this managing memory? That means when any process requests any memory, now the job of the operating system to allocate the memory to the process. Now, once the process, that is execution, is over, after that the job of the operating system is to free the memory or deallocate the memory. After that, once again reallocate the memory to a program. That means once again, if the process requires memory, then reallocate the memory and keep track of memory usage. That means how many block of memory is reserved for one process and how many blocks are used by the second process, so and so. Along with that, how many memory blocks are remaining, all those things are done by the operating system. Now the job of the operating system is to allocate memory, free the memory, as well as deallocate the memory, reallocate the memory, and keep track of memory usage. So dear student, to understand this concept, let me to consider the memory representation here. Okay, think that I have 20 byte of memory. I have 20 byte of memory. Now think that I have process 1 and this process 1 requires 5 byte of memory. Now, the job of the operating system is to allocate, that is 5 byte of memory for this process 1. And at the same time, it is responsible for keep track of remaining memory. Now, how many memory bytes are free now? It is 15. And who is going to keep track of memory? That is operating system. Now, think that I have second process P2 and it's going to request 10 byte of memory. Now, who is responsible for allocating 10 byte of memory for P2? That is operating system. Now, tell me how many memory bytes are remaining. Now, it is 5. So, all these things are carried out by the operating system. Think that now the process P1 completed its execution. Now, the job of the operating system is to deallocate the memory or free the memory. Now, what is the remaining memory? Now, I have that is 10 byte. So, out of 20 byte, 10 byte is used by the process 2 and remaining memory is 10 byte. All those things are carried out by the operating system. Moving further, I'm going to have process management. So, what is this process? Dear student, please remember here that process is nothing but program in execution. That means any program in execution is known as process. So, what are the jobs of operating system here? Control access to shared resources like file, memory, input and CPU. When I consider computer, in that we are having shared resource. That means some resources are shared by more than 2 process. And which are the resource we can able to share here? That is file, memory, that is nothing but computer memory, all the input and output devices along with that CPU. Now, the job of the operating system is to control the execution of program or application. Along with that, it's also responsible for creating a process, executing a process and deleting a process. Along with that, it's also responsible for cancelling the process or resume a process. Along with that, it's also responsible for scheduling a process. That means when I have more than 2 processes, how the resources are allocated for this process, that is known as process scheduling. Along with that, synchronization as well as communication as well as deadlock handling for the process. Anyway, why I require synchronization? Because here I have 2 processes and 2 processes want to communicate each other. In that time, I require synchronization between the process. Then deadlock handling. So, dear student, all these topics are advanced topic, but at present you just want to remember that what are the job of operating system with respect to process management. That is nothing but synchronization, communication as well as deadlock management. Now I'm going to have device management. So this is also the function of operating system. So what is this device management? I have input device as well as output device. Now the job of the operating system is to allocate the input device as well as output device to the process. Now, the operating system is responsible for opening, closing, as well as writing all the device drivers. Along with that, it is also responsible for establishing communication between input device as well as output device, controlling input device as well as output device, as well as monitor all the device drivers. These are the functions of device management in operating system. Moving further, I'm going to have files. Okay, this is also the job of operating system, because when I consider shared resource, I'm going to have file. Now, the same file is shared between more than two processes. Now, I want to manage all the files. For that, I require operating system. Now, the job of the operating system is to create a file, delete a file, as well as directory, and provide the access to the file. Along with that, allocate space for the file, then keep track of the files. Along with that, provide the security to that file. So these are the functions of operating system. Now, the next function here, I'm going to have protection as well as security. When I consider operating system, the job of the operating system is to protect resources as well as system, and it is responsible for providing user authentication. Along with that, file attributes like read file, write file, and encryption, as well as backup of data, which is used by the operating system to provide basic protection. That means, what is user authentication here? Only the valid user can able to access the file or access the program. And if I consider any file, I can able to set the permission, that is read, write, and execution permission. That means for user, I can able to set read permission, write permission, as well as execute permission. Now, all these jobs of operating system. User interface or command interpreter. Here, operating system provides an user interface between user and computer hardware. So, dear student, the job of the operating system is to provide interface. And what kind of interface? That is command line interface as well as graphical user interface. By using this interface, the user can able to interact with the computer hardware. Moving further, I'm going to have the type of operating system. So, there are many type of operating system based on the user or based on the working procedure. We can able to classify the operating system into three main category, that is user, that is single user operating system, batch operating system, as well as multi programming operating system. Under multi-programming operating system, I have multitasking operating system, multi-user operating system, time shared operating system, as well as real-time operating system. Anyway, dear student, let's start with this single user operating system. So as the name itself indicates that only one user can able to use the operating system at a time. So this operating system allows only one user to share the system resource, including CPU. Example, I can able to consider Windows 7. Think that I have laptop and I installed Windows 7 operating system. Now, This is the example for single user operating system. That means a single user can able to use all the resources which is belong to that computer. Now this allows only one user to share the system resources including the CPU, and the operating system configured for the use of desktop PC and laptop. That means which are the operating system we are going to install only for desktop PC as well as laptop falls under single user operating system. Example, I can able to consider DOS, that is desktop operating system, and Windows 95, Windows 98, Apple Macintosh. These are the example for single user operating system. Now, what is operating system? It's a mediator between user and computer. Example for operating system, I can able to consider all the Windows operating system. Under Windows operating system, I can have different flavors, that is Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows NT, etc. Along with that, I can able to have Linux as well as Unix operating system. If I consider mobile device, for mobile device, I can able to have the operating systems like Android, Windows as well as Apple iOS. Now, I'm going to have my second type of operating system, that is batch operating system. So, what is this batch? In our regular life or day-to-day life, we are going to encounter the word called batch. So, what is this batch? A batch includes more than 2 members, or a batch includes more than 2 programs. And what kind of program we are going to include here? That is same kind of program. Now, dear student, let me to consider the example here that in my class I have 40 students. Okay, now I want to conduct some lab experiment and I cannot able to take all 40 members together. So what I will do, I'm going to make 2 batch, and each batch holds 20 members. And what I will do, I'm going to take C program for this 20 members, and other faculty, they are going to take physics lab for remaining 20 members. So I'm going to group the activity. Similarly, if I go with batch operating system, in batch is defined as a group of jobs. So group of jobs with similar needs. That means I'm going to group the jobs based on same kind of requirement and same kind of resource requirement. The operating system that allows user to create batch. That means by using batch operating system, user can able to create the batch and execute the batch sequentially. So here user can able to create their own batch and they can able to execute the batch sequentially. That is one after another, processing all the jobs of batch, consider them as a single process. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to process all the jobs in the form of batch, and it is called single process, and it's also known as batch operating system, and it allows lighter or no interaction between user and executing program. Once the batch is given to the execution, then there is no interaction between the operating system as well as the programmer. Now, this is well suited for the application with large computation time and no user interaction required. For example, think that I want to take thousands of printout. In that time, I can able to consider this kind of example. That means I can go with batch operating system. That means I'm going to give thousands of printout in one shot. Okay, I'm going to give one click. After giving printout, there is no interaction between me and the printer because I had given the print command. Now the job of the printer is to take the printout. So here this is suited for the application with no longer computation time and no longer user interaction required. And example for batch operating system, that is payroll, weather forecasting, statistical analysis are the program example for its usage. That means in payroll, I can able to use batch operating system. Even weather forecasting, I can able to use batch operating system. Even in statistical analysis, I can able to use batch operating system. Now I'm going to have multi-programming operating system. So multi-programming means what? More than two programs are going to execute simultaneously. So here multi-programming is the capacity or capability of CPU is to execute two or more programs concurrently or simultaneously. So this is the capacity of the CPU is to execute two or more programs simultaneously. So two or more programs are stored in concurrently in the primary storage. That means suppose if I want to execute two or more programs, then all the programs must be stored in the main memory and CPU is going to move from one program to another and partially it is going to execute. For example, think that I have program 1, program 2 and program 3. Now the job of the CPU is to execute both the programs together. And how the programs are going to execute here? Here, operating system is going to execute some portion from program 1, then it switches to program 2 and it's going to execute some portion from program 2 and it's going to switch to program 3. Now it's going to execute some portion. After that, it's going to switch back to program 1. Now, the job of the CPU is to switch from one program to another, and this kind of program execution falls under multi-programming operating system. Now, only one program is executed at a time. So here by using multi-programming operating system, I can able to execute only one program at a time. If I consider early computer system, many personal computers executes program in the order in which read into the system. If I go with early computer system, most of the computer systems are capable to execute only one program at a time. But if I go with multi-programming operating system, then I can able to execute multiple, that means more than two programs at a time, and it is the capacity of the CPU is to perform multiple programs at a time. Now I'm going to have multitasking operating system. So what is this multitasking? Here multitasking is nothing but multiple tasks are carried out simultaneously. Now multitasking operating system allow more than one program to run at a time. In multitasking operating system, user can able to run more than two programs at a time. Now think that I want to prepare some documentation, and while preparing documentation I may get bored. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the music. Okay, that means I'm going to listen to the music and at the same time I'm going to work on the document. So multitasking is usually implemented by code and data of several programs in memory simultaneously, and multiplexing processor and input data among them. That means in multitasking operating system, we are going to use the concept called code and data, and it uses multiplexing. So what is this multiplexing? Multiplexing is capable to read multiple input, but what is the output? I can able to get only one output. So multitasking is also called context switching, and multitasking is usually referred to a single user, and the best example for multitasking operating system is Windows 98. Now see here, I want to work with the word. At the same time, I want to check the email, and at the same time, I want to browse. Now, dear student, all these things are input to operating system. That means all these things are carried out simultaneously by the operating system, and it is the capacity of the CPU. Now, I have multi-user operating system. So what is multi-user? Here, more than two user can able to use the operating system. So a multi-user operating system allows multiple user on different computers or terminal. That means in multi-user operating system, more than two user can able to work on the computer system with one OS on it. That means they can able to access the computer with their computer or terminals to access a single system, and that single system will have only one OS. It creates and maintains individual user environment. That means multi-user operating systems are capable to create and maintenance individual user environment, individual authentication, as well as individual security level privilege, and provides resource based on the user request. So this is all about multi-user operating system. Anyway, dear student, in my today's session, I started with what is an operating system. Along with that, I have discussed the functions of operating system. Along with that, I have discussed the different types of operating system. So dear student, in my next session, I'm going to deal with the new topic, that is Unix operating system. Let's meet in the next session with the new topic, that is Unix operating system. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.